For over 80 years, the Visiting Nurse Association of Cape Cod has played an essential role in the health care here on the Cape. What began in 1915 with a handful of nurses delivering home nursing care to relieve the busy country doctor has grown to an organization with a presence in over 1,600 homes each day on Cape Cod. The Visiting Nurse Association of Cape Cod sees more patients than Cape Cod and Falmouth hospitals put together. Theirs is a service we all recognize we could not do without. But in the scope of their work, the visiting nurses have identified a segment of our population whose needs are not being met. The nurses have determined what needs to be done in these cases, but the funds for the solutions do not exist. The frustration the visiting nurses feel at having to withdraw their care or provide inadequate care at such critical times is traumatic. With the creation of the Children's Fund, we can eliminate this injustice. With the creation of the Children's Fund, the Visiting Nurse Association of Cape Cod can fulfill its mission to provide quality nursing care to all their patients. It is often a piece of equipment, or counseling, or just one more day of nursing care that would make all the difference in the world to these young patients and their families. This is their story.
When Petey was first born, I had always prayed and wished that he would be healed, that he stayed healthy. And, you know, not have to keep going into the hospital and having pneumonias, and to be able to be warm and not be cold all the time. That'd be a big wish.
Peter's one of my favorite patients. He's such a nice little boy who unfortunately has severe developmental disabilities. He cannot care for himself in any way. He's unable to even maintain his own body temperature. His mother, Mary Ann, is as close to a living angel as I know. She is totally dedicated to him. Although Mary Ann provides much more for Peter than any mother should have to provide for a child, she needs help.
Petey, you're going to put your vest on, okay?
There are times that I go into a home and I can't imagine how this parent is getting from one day to the next. They're sleep deprived. They can't remember the last time they ate. They don't allow themselves to get sick, because if they do, then what happens? Who's going to be there to take care of this child? It's this kind of family that I often feel that I can't do enough for. There isn't a way of providing for them, because it's the support that they need.
Believe it or not, Peter's mother has had a tremendous amount of difficulty obtaining the basic services that she needs for Peter. Things that help to keep him out of the hospital, such as suction and assistance devices with physical therapy. Visiting nurse support has been tremendously helpful to Peter's mother in helping to obtain some of those other services by the documentation of his issues.
It's not easy, but you do what you can for your children, and you just hope you can get the help you need when you need it. The big problem is just trying to get supplies to keep your child at home. Getting the equipment you need, that's a battle, you know, and I'd spend hours on the phone. I'd spend so much time finding a medical company that could equip my son's needs.
The establishment of the Children's Fund of the Cape Cod Visiting Nurse Association would be a tremendous boost. It would give physicians more license to have additional support for families at times when they know that it is needed.
I think what would be a big help would to have a coordinator, someone that can get to know your child, get to know your child's needs like a caseworker, and help educate the parents. This, from the beginning, it's been a long road, and the biggest part is getting educated and finding people out there that can help educate you, make the right phone calls, get you with the right connections. And having somebody that you could call for support to help you through these times would take so much stress off our lives, so that we could spend more time with Petey and not so much time on the phone. Because sometimes you feel like a nurse and you want to be a mother. I need to be a mother.
With the Children's Fund, the Visiting Nurse Association of Cape Cod will have the resources to expand pediatric care.
Well, when we had Alyssa, she was a beautiful little girl, and we really didn't know that anything was wrong with her. After tests and a lot of anguish, we found out that she did have what is called spinal muscular atrophy in the most severe type, type 1.
It's hard to put into words what it's like for a family when their child is dying. It's something that is not supposed to happen. Adults who are terminally ill may be in a situation where everyone understands that it's their time. That's never the case with a child.
Through the doctors, VNA came into our lives to help us in ways that were not only technical, which she helped very greatly there, but also emotional support. When you're going through something like that, she was there for the family.
This past year, professionally, has been very draining. I've been involved with a very difficult case of a child who is now at the end stages of her illness. I think that it's shown me the need for a more formal hospice team. It's hard to take this hat off, the nurse hat off, and put on a different hat and say, so how are you doing emotionally? That's almost a separate service to the family, and that's how we have to start viewing it. Nurses can't wear 5 different hats in a visit. So that, to me, is where I see the gap in our care and where I'd like to improve our program. I really don't ever want to go and have another year like I had on this particular case. The Children's Fund could establish a pediatric hospice foundation that would provide that person for the family to turn to, besides the nurse.
The visiting nurses stayed with us on Christmas Eve, and that was the day Alyssa died. She died about 3 o'clock in the afternoon, but they stayed with us till about 7 o'clock that evening. They could have been home with their families, but they were with us, making sure that we were okay and everything's all right with us.
With the Children's Fund, the Visiting Nurse Association of Cape Cod will have the resources for a specialized pediatric hospice unit.
Now I'm just going to listen, right?
With the increased acuity in that there are children that are sicker now. And so sometimes it means a special trip to Boston, not only for the family, but for the nurses or the caregivers for extra training. It's a lot of time on the phones, trying to track down the right person. This is a very time-consuming part of what we do every day. This is something that's never reimbursable by insurance. This is something that doesn't get paid for in any way through the agency. It's just that the agency supports us in doing these kinds of things because it enables us to deliver a really high level of care.
The dedication and the caring and the willingness to do extra things for families that they clearly become a part of is truly remarkable.
The visiting nurse that we had went home and actually did research on her own to find out more about spinal muscular atrophy and how she could help Alyssa.
The Children's Fund will help us be ready. It'll help provide for the equipment that we need. It can help provide the training that we need.
I think the nurses at the VNA are so great, and I think the Children's Fund would really help, and they deserve the help.
With the Children's Fund, the Visiting Nurse Association of Cape Cod will be ready with the necessary equipment and training.
The birth of a baby is a time of a huge transition for the baby, the mother, and the whole family. Medically, of course, we're concerned that the baby is feeding okay and is learning how to breastfeed or managing to take in enough that it provides their needs. Having one visit at home is extremely helpful, but of course it's only a beginning. Many times when the visiting nurse goes to a home, what may have started off as a simple routine medical follow-up will actually turn out to be a visit that helps families with other issues that are going on in their life. If, to use an extreme example, if there is no heat in a home, then that is going to bump other medical issues such as breastfeeding or the mother's care of herself off of the agenda because it's an immediate essential need.
Different things come up between the transition from hospital to home. And one of the important aspects of our job is that we not only assess them initially, but we follow through and help and make sure that they have found help for those problems and network them to the appropriate resources. That often cannot be done in just one visit. That's what we are allowed to do under town contracts. And it is a wonderful program, but it often falls short of the need of the family. Typically that is maybe 2, sometimes 3 visits, but it allows us the time to work through those issues that can't be dealt with in just one visit.
The problem there is that many times what an insurance company would see as a valid medical reason for a home visit, the social things and the things that are really important for health and well-being are not necessarily on their diagnostic codes. And so there are things that fall between the cracks.
Our hope and our constant goal is to provide care to those families and to work through those issues that can't be dealt with in just one visit.
With the Children's Fund, the Visiting Nurse Association will be able to provide necessary additional visits.
Currently in Cape Cod there's a home health aide shortage, and this really has affected the pediatric population because there's a small subspecialty of home health aides that have an interest in working with children and families.
I think that it's really important to give the families a break where they're out there dealing with surgeries and different complications, and we're able to come in and do anything that the child needs help with or that the parents need help with so that they can take the time to themselves or for themselves.
What day was it yesterday? Yesterday was Thursday. Today is Friday. It's not. Oh. What are you doing this weekend? Can you help me?
The Visiting Nurse Association has always been there for me and my daughter. They really are the only agency that offers pediatric services. They just don't come in and do their job and leave. They take their job with them from the heart. And I just really cannot find the words to express just how fantastic the visiting nurses have been to me and my family, my daughter. There are no words.
With the Children's Fund, the Visiting Nurse Association of Cape Cod will have the resources to train parent aides. In servicing the community, Cape Cod doctors and our VNA pediatric nurses have identified real acute gaps in the reimbursable services they can provide their young patients and the families. And no one suffers from these shortcomings more than the children. But with the creation of the Children's Fund of the Visiting Nurse Association of Cape Cod, we can bridge the gaps. With the Children's Fund, we can provide adequate pediatric care. With the Children's Fund, we can provide a pediatric hospice unit. With the Children's Fund, we can be ready with the equipment and training we'll need. With the Children's Fund, we can provide necessary additional visits. With the Children's Fund, we can ease the shortage of parent aides. Please help us. Your donation is the building block to the success of the Children's Fund. With the Children's Fund, the Visiting Nurse Association of Cape Cod can continue the great work they are famous for. They can continue to give care from the heart.